But you'd paid your dues. You'd done probably hundreds of little gigs. Where anybody would stand still to listen to you, you'd probably sing.
No question about it. You know, we didn't really start making any money until after we had been, you know, doing it for about 5 years or so, and then we started to make money enough to be comfortable in our private lives and so on.
And I imagine you encountered that in your research a lot, Norman, when you talked to people over these past 2 decades getting started.
You know, the interesting point that Smokey made is the fact of the difference, I think, between the 50s and 60s as opposed to today. At the time when they were appearing on shows, there were always these big cavalcade of stars. Maybe there'd be 10 or 15 groups, and it was easy to get them around because most of the thing was structured in the harmonizing and the singing. That's what people were listening to, the lyrics and the sounds that were coming out of their voices alone. Today, it's a whole thing where it's a logistical problem with the sound equipment and everything else, and what the groups are being paid, it's almost impossible. And I think the big difference as far as with the performers, back in the 50s and 60s, the money to be made on albums is one thing, but the money that a lot of groups are making today is the concert appearances. I mean, you know, back at that time, you know, someone might have gotten paid $1,500 and thought it was a lot to money. Today,
$1,500 was a lot of money.
$25,000 for one night or so, you know, it gets to be staggering.
And now you have to have wheelbarrows to take the money out of the Cleveland Stadium, you know, when the Stones or the Fleetwood Mac play.
Hi, I'm here with Mr. Music, Norman Nite, who is a disc jockey and music trivia expert and author, television personality, and you have a second book out now on rock and roll called Rock On, and it's got kind of a lovely kind of a cover. Bye, Chef.
Thank you.
Why don't you stick around?
No, I gotta go. Bye.
No, come on, stick around. Okay, nice to talk to you. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, when Elvis Presley first came on the scene, he revolutionized the whole industry, and I feel that he took it on the chin for every rock star to come after him, like Jagger and Springsteen and all those people. Do you feel that he also affected even the sexuality of the nation and the clothes and the mores? And I mean, remember when Ed Sullivan had him shot from the waist up? And
he was a very revolutionary person in a lot of respects. You know, in the whole pop music idiom, in the 40s you had Sinatra, the 50s it was Elvis, the 60s of course were the Beatles. But the thing about Elvis Presley, what he did in the 1950s is he kind of turned the whole thing around single-handedly. In the 60s, Dylan had his whole cult, the Beatles had theirs, the English Invasion, but Presley did it in his own way, and the people started to emulate what he did. The hairstyles with the sideburns, the pink Cadillacs. Pink was the big color, and what they were dressing and what they were speaking, and his catchphrases. His #1 song in 1957, All Shook Up, became the catchphrase of the year at that time. The things that he was doing, and another big thing that Elvis was very responsible for is taking the music that influenced him, the black rhythm and blues sound of the 1950s, and made it become a popular thing. And he brought black artists like Otis Blackwell that were writers and performers like that, and made them popular artists with the masses. So
what about the Rolling Stones? I mean, you know, they clearly have
the Rolling
their
Stones
style from the black music in this country.
If you take a look at Mick Jagger on stage doing a number, and take a look at James Brown doing a number, the similarity in the dance steps are phenomenal. If you took a split screen and watched the two of them do it, in fact, I was watching a film I have some film at home I was watching, and James Brown was doing Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, and he was doing that footwork and sliding back and forth. And Jagger, I put on a film of Jagger doing a song, and it was so similar it wasn't even funny, because most of the English artists picked up their style from a lot of the black artists.
And
at
they
that
openly
time.
admit that.
Yeah.
The Jagger's like a rooster on acid.
Yeah.
Norm, how do you feel?
Just fine, Joe. Really do. And it's been, gee, I was thinking a couple of years since I've seen you last on the show, but...
You look great. This book has become the definitive encyclopedia. First was part 1, now part 2.
Yeah, 4 years ago this month, this part 1 came out, and then all of a sudden this one's out now, and where does the time go, you know? But it's been a lot, as they say, the expression labor of love, and that's truly what it has been, putting them together.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Tonight we have with us Mr. Norman Nite, who we promoted last night and didn't have time for, and Norm is here tonight.
He is Mr. Music from WNBC Radio back in New York City. He knows Dick Clark personally, and, and he has a new book which is called Rock On Volume 2. Back tonight is with us is one of my older best friends. I mean, I've known him for a long time, but he grows younger every year, only in your mind. Norm Nite from WNBC Radio New York, the author of Rock On, and now Rock On 2. Rock On left off when in the 50s, and Rock On 2 takes it up to the 70s?
Yeah, Tom, I use the Beatles as a dividing line. The Beatles changed the whole popular music scene in the mid-60s, and that was a point of reference because they did so much as far as musically, so you had to have a dividing line between the two eras, and I think the Beatles were the ones that did it.
Mm-hmm.
Sooner or later, everything happens with the passage of time, and rock and roll now has become an established and central cultural fact in our lives. Jane this morning is with a man who can be called accurately an historian of rock and roll. His name is Norm N. Nite.
If you can believe it, rock and roll is well into its 30s now. Some rock groups and stars have retired already. Others have grown bigger and better over the years. There are, of course, thousands of them. And all of them have made the pages of rock history. And here's the man who wrote it. He's a man who knows the names and all of the hit songs over the years. His years as a disc jockey have led Norman Nite to a fitting destiny. He has written Rock On, the illustrated history of rock and roll. Actually, Norm's book is Volume 2. It covers 1964 to the present. Volume 1 covers the days from the beginning of rock and roll until 1964. What happened in 1964?
1964, Jane, a lot of things happened. Of course, the biggest thing was the Beatles. The emergence of the Beatles, which kind of really changed the whole pop music scene. We were looking for something different at the time. You know, we were going through a lot of bad things with rock and roll because in 1959 we had the payola scandals. We lost Buddy Holly. Elvis was in the service. A lot of major rock stars were, Little Richard was in the ministry. The major rock stars weren't on the scene anymore. We went through a dancing period in the 1960s, and then all of a sudden we were looking for something new. We wanted something new to happen.
Did you know when you heard the Beatles that you'd found it?
I tell you something, I really did. When I heard the Beatles for the first time, I think like most people, when they were watching on the Ed Sullivan Show, I was in college at the time and I saw this happening, and you know, the reaction from everyone was shocked because when you look at the hairstyles today, you say they were short, and yet the hairstyle and the way they were presenting the thing and the audience, the reaction of the audience, you knew immediately something new was happening.